Is Fontainebleau as great as they say it is? This trip we went to 3 bouldering areas in France: Guebenschuer, Médonné and Fontainebleau. We are 2 V4 indoor climbers, and today we find out if we can enjoy outdoor bouldering as average climbers as much as indoor bouldering. And it might not be as great as you think it is.
Just let a man breathe and just hush so my mind could just see, so my mind don't erupt. At times I feel I can't get enough, but I sip a double cup and I spin a couple bucks, sending out some love to my blood, to my girl, to my...
We will compare the 3 area grades from the ranges V0 to V4, and we will see if they are comparable to each other and to inside bouldering. So sit back, relax and enjoy. There were a few V0s in Guebenschuer that we tried. First off, the sit start 4C. You should, as the tag implies, start sitting down and then you go up via the side of the boulder. But for us there was no way we could start this boulder, as there were no footholds and we didn't know if we could use the separated rocks that were laying on the floor as starting hold for our feet. So we gave up and went on to this 4B slab right next to it. It had some smaller edges which you can use for footholds, but they were pretty slippery as you can see. Also, there are some smaller rocks in the boulder that can lose when standing on it. My girlfriend managed to do this one after a few tries and I thought it was too sketchy, so I skipped on to the next boulder. And then we did this 4C, which was pretty straightforward. There was no sit start and there was only jugs. So you can start it standing, so it made more sense that it was a 4C and the other one was not, or there was a specific beta to it that we didn't know of. We tried a few other V0s, like this slab boulder, but as you can see, or rather not see, there are almost no visible footholds. So I had no clue how to get up this. We did 2 V1s before this, which I will show you in the next chapter. But now let's go on to Médonné. Started with this V0, which was pretty straightforward. It had a standing start and a couple of big jugs. However, it was slightly overhang and you still need a lot of power to get up it. This area did only contain 4 boulders in the range of V0. So that was the only V0 we did. The first day at Fontainebleau we went to Bascuvier, where you have no cell phone range, so download the maps if possible before you head out. So I decided not to film there on the first day because I didn't download any of the maps and we were not trying any specific boulder problems and just trying to get on top of the boulders. We have found that the area at Bascuvier contained a lot of concentrated boulder, which were all climbed so often, they often felt slick and slippery. The second day we went to Gorget d'Abremont, south of Bascuvier. We started with a boulder called Lullaby and Boule de Chouf. These had a V1 and a V2 boulders, so I will show you those in the next chapter. We found a V0 route at a boulder called L'Absinthe, which was crazy hard for a V0 in my opinion. The V1 and the V2 that we tried were probably easier than this one. The V0 you can see in the background. I gave it a couple times before we switched and Laura figured out the beta. But it was very slopey on top of the boulder, so not a lot of grip to pull you over the edge. I then gave the boulder a couple of tries and managed to get a lot further this time, but couldn't get over the top of the boulder. Laura managed to do it after a few tries, when she placed her foot on the right side except the left side, which gave her more stability. As last she tried this V0 slab, but yet again no apparent footholds in the vicinity. Now to compare the outdoor V0 with the indoor V0. When making this video I found out that I don't really record V0 much, so I had to dig in my files a bit to find some examples. So in the background you see a V1 actually. As you can see, they are pretty straightforward. They often come close to being ladders, so not much of a competition to how hard the V0s outside are. But maybe you can compare the V0s in your own indoor bouldering gym and see how well they compare to outdoor bouldering. Now let's move on to the V1 and V2 range, or the 5 or 5 plus in font grading. This range contained in comparison with the V0 more powerful moves, but they're more straightforward. So we probably managed to do more of this range than the V0 range. In Geumspear I managed to do one V1 and Laura did 2 V1s. They were easier to read than the 4s and pretty straightforward. Some sit start tags did not make sense though, as the apparent starting holds for your hands were too high to pull off. After checking the app 27 cracks again, sometimes the tags are not loading or displaying right when you click on the boulder problem. So take note of that. We clicked some problems and they were saying it was a sit start. When you click back in the overview, it didn't have the icon of the sit start, so it was not loading properly.
Nice.
Damn.
Oh my god.
Now let's move on to Meidone. We started this V2 after the V0 that we did for warming up and in the previous chapter. For the start you have two very small crimps. I think they were comparable or maybe even smaller than a 20mm edge on a Beastmaker. In my mind this should already be higher graded for my experience in the indoor bouldering gym. But this is outdoor bouldering, so the grading is definitely different from what you are used to. Because I don't have really strong fingers and proper foot technique to get enough load of my fingers, I couldn't get out of the start of this problem. For a lot of these problems, stronger fingers or good technique is required to do them comfortably. I gave it a few more tries, but defeated, we moved on to the next boulder. Laura tried the slab, but it was a bit too sketchy because of the moss, so we moved on from the slab to a more straightforward V2 that was located at a boulder called Ricklets, which contained a lot of problems ranging from V2 to V8. We did the V2, which was a standing start into a small traverse and finishing off with a small mantle. Took me a couple tries, but I managed to walrus myself over the boulder and got the finish. Now let's move on to Fontainebleau, where we did one V1 and one V2, as mentioned before at Lullaby and Boule de Chouffe, where the V2 on Lullaby felt impossible for both of us, as it was pretty overhang and there were bug moves with no good footholds. The V1 at Bouldershoof was way more manageable. It also looks pretty straightforward with the big cracks in the rock, which also looked very nice. I only got Lars top out, but my top out didn't really count anyway, as I used the boulder besides Bouldershoof, but who's counting? Now for the V1 and V2 indoor bouldering, it gets a bit harder. I found that the holds on V1 and V2 are always a bit strange and that the holds add the most difficulty to the climb and not the technique itself. I often find that this range is sometimes more difficult for me than the V3 or V4 range because I have to think harder about them. As you see in the background, this is a 5 plus I did recently, which had a lot of uncomfortable holds. And you have to use a bit more body position if you want to do it more efficient instead of powering through, which is also an option. The only V3 and V4 range we could start or do was in Medonay. The ones at Games were not clean enough to even start or top out. I wanted to do this 6B called Fuji Tutti and flashed it first go. As I was checking the routes, I was like, nah, you didn't do it right, you have to start all the way left. But she did it again afterwards, so fair play to her. I tried to boulder but could not get over the top as the rocks were very sharp in the middle, so you only have a few tries on this one. I couldn't manage to get my foot high enough to get my hand on the right side of the rock, so that was the only thing that was keeping me back. They love the presence of my voice like I'm Big Pun. I switched the Prezi out for the day just. Sometimes I gotta ask God why they hate us. I see the fake smiles on these boys like veneers. I've been counting up, cause it's my golden year. Popping ace of spades to wash away the tears. I ain't seen an L in the last 5 years. Let's take a victory lap, let's take a set to relax. I fell in love with the streets are loving me back. I put my all in this game, and it's paying me back. I need a round of applause, I need a victory lap. Let's take a victory lap, let's take a set to relax. I fell in love with the streets is loving me back. I put my all in this game, and it's paying me back. I need a round of applause, I need a victory lap. After the 6B we tried a different 6B. There was a beta video of it on the app, so we took that as a reference. It took me probably more than over 20 tries or more. And Laura did it only in a couple of tries after watching me struggle. Let's take a victory lap. Let's take a victory lap. Let's take a set to relax. I fell in love with this game, and it's loving me back. I put my all in this game, and it's paying me back. I need a round of applause. I need a victory lap. Let's take a victory lap. Let's take a set to relax. I fell in love with this game, and it's loving me back. Put my all in this game, and it's paying me back. I need a round of applause. I need a victory lap. We did try 1-6A or 3-3 in Fontainebleau, but I could not get out of the starting position, and Laura is just built different and got pretty far. But a lot of problems starting from the 3-3 in Fontainebleau were just too hard for us.
Ja. Ja.
Compare the V3 and V4 range to indoor climbing, the ones that we did were pretty comparable to the inside boulders. For example, the 6B Tutti Frutti had powerful moves and you needed to put your body in the right position to move further. Like this white 6B, it was very powerful and you need to perform a bicycle so you can move more easily to the next hold.
Ja, goed zo. Die laatste is makkelijk. Ja.
The 6B that you saw in the last outside bouldering video, you need a lot of tension on your foot and then hang into the slope. It applies a lot in the gym and especially in kilterboarding. You need to put a lot of tension in your foot to get to the next hold.
Ja. Ja.
So from the V3 range, bouldering gyms start to add a lot more crimpers. Which is nice because you will train your fingers, which is much needed for outdoor climbing. Also, outdoor climbing has more often than not crimp style holds, so it is better to get used to them sooner than later. Also, I recommend you train a lot of slap to trust your feet more, which will translate to finding edges more easily and trusting them so you're less scared on the boulders. And you find better ways to get up the boulder wall. Also, mantling is a big part of bouldering outside, which can be pretty scary. In the upcoming video I will compare the kiltboard to outdoor climbing and how you can train for outdoor specifically. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment and I will see you next time.
Net toch gewoon.